So we're going to begin the glossary, which is really in a way, it's a summary of the book with the key concepts presented in alphabetical order. So it may be that this is a useful way of, in a way, as I say, summarizing the whole book through the main ideas that are described briefly in alphabetical order in the book. Okay, the second concept is alienated reciprocities. Alienated reciprocities. Appearing mainly in chapter 6 on the economy, this term refers to the way that a socially alienated environment is actually constituted by a circulation of reciprocal performances of the self that are enacted on the outside of the self. In the current economy, these alienated reciprocities shape the material practices of producing and distributing goods and services. That is, they actually support the practices themselves from the inside, and therefore form what we might call the inside of the economy. From the standpoint of social being, they are the economy. So the key example in chapter 6 is of the cafe, where the waiters are being waiters. We, when we get a job, enter into performing a certain kind of self that create a milieu of partly being present and partly being absent in the roles that are being played and reproduced. Or if you go into a bank, the whole feeling of the bank as a milieu or an environment is being constructed out of the artificiality of the tellers, and then the well-dressed sort of manager may come from the back room and inquire what's going on, if everything's okay. All of these mannered ways of being. The idea in chapter 6 is that this is what is creating capitalism. What's creating it from the inside is the replication of alienation, spreading from person to person in this circulating way, constantly reproducing these puffs of culture in a kind of circulating fashion, each holding the other up. Or the other big example I give in chapter 7 is of the legal system, with the judge, body covered by a black robe, elevated from the rest, barely moving to hear opinions and ideas, all expressed through an artificial language, the language of law that nobody else can understand. All of that is a replication of alienation that is the legal system, reproducing its hierarchy everywhere, everyone believing that they are following it and its rules. So the point there is, reality is not just the material part of producing goods, distributing goods, accumulating land and machinery and housing. It's not the way it's often talked about is as if the reality is that and everything else is surface. No, that's not true. The reality is the reproduction of the alienation, because the key thing is that we're in flight from each other's presence. And when we discover each other's presence, we dissolve what's absurd in these institutions that keep reconstructing themselves. I may have given the example before of a song by a rock group of the 60s called, the group was called The Electric Flag, and they have an opening to one of their songs in which Lyndon Johnson, who was then the president, starts a speech. They have him recorded saying, he was from Texas, so, "My fellow Americans, I'm here today," starting. And then all of a sudden everybody breaks into laughter.
I speak tonight for the dignity of man and the destiny of tomorrow.
And the point of breaking into laughter in that instance is not so much being critical of Johnson per se or putting him down, but rather laughter that this is what is taken seriously normally, and that now in this movement stage of the 60s that we're in when this song comes out, now we can see through all that pretentiousness, people being spellbound by hierarchy, by the way certain phrases are uttered. And of course, to continue that example of the president, the president comes out and he appears often behind a seal that is the seal of the United States. But it's basically it's saying, I am the president, so, and I am real, when in reality, in that sense, he isn't real. He's playing a part. And we can create a world in which there can be leaders, of course, and leadership, but not artificial role-playing through the medium of a hierarchy of roles and of alienated reciprocities. So that's the idea of alienated reciprocities.